You spend 2 hours building a tabletop exercise, real scenario, solid injects, decision points designed to challenge your company officers where they actually struggle. So before you take it to your crew, you do the smart thing. You take it to AI. You ask for honest feedback. Is the scenario tight? Do the injects hit the right mark? Are there gaps you can't see because you're too close to it? And AI says, this is a well-structured exercise. The scenario effectively challenges crews. A few minor areas could be strengthened. That's it. Nothing sharp. Nothing that would have helped you find the problem before your crews found it for you. Here's what's actually happening. AI is trained to be agreeable. That's a feature most of the time. But when you need a third party to pressure test this SOG before it becomes a policy, find the hole in your AR before it goes to the chief, or catch what's missing from a training plan before you run it. Agreeable is exactly the wrong set. I spent 40 years in the fire service. I know what it costs when we miss the gap we should have caught first. AI can close that gap, but only if you know how to ask for it. Today, I'm going to show you a 6-step method called Brutal, built for fire service leaders who need honest feedback on the work that actually matters. I'm Ken Lord, retired battalion chief with over 40 years in the fire service. The last 15 was spent in training and EMS as a battalion chief. I've been working seriously with AI for the past 4 years. Some of the time was while I was still on the job. Not because it was trendy, but because I could see what it could do for fire service leaders who learned to push it rather than just accept what it gave them. AI Fire Guide is built on one idea. The fire service should be leading the shift, not chasing it. That starts with knowing how to get real work out of these tools, including getting them to tell you the truth. The B in Brutal is for begin fresh. And I want to give you the accurate version because the simplified version will get you called out. AI is trained to be agreeable. That's baked into the model itself. It's not a quirk, it's a design choice. Memory makes that tendency worse because over time, AI builds a picture of who you are and starts to optimize for your comfort. Begin fresh removes that layer. The persona has built around you. The rest of the Brutal method addresses the underlying tendency directly. Think of it like this. A new company officer gives you straight feedback on your incident command because they haven't learned which critiques you take well and which ones shut you down. Your crew of 10 years has learned that. The AI with your memory active has learned that as well. A fresh session puts you back working with that new officer. Every major platform has a temporary or incognito mode that disables memory for that session. The specific location of these controls changes as the platforms update. The principle is the same everywhere though. Before you bring anything you want honest feedback in, start with a clean session. The R in Brutal is for choosing the right model. Not every AI is trained the same, and that shapes how honest it will be with you by default. From consistent patterns that I have seen, not published benchmarks, models like Grok and DeepSeek tend toward the direct end. ChatGPT and Claude, or certain instances of Claude, tend towards the supportive end. Gemini often lands somewhere in the middle and surprises people with how frank it can be. That said, run your own comparison on a document you know well before you rely on any model ranking. The right model for your use case may differ from that of mine. For high stakes work, an SOG that's about to go to command or a training plan that's about to go to your crew, drop that same prompt into 2 or 3 models and compare what comes back. You'll catch things from one that the others have missed. The U in Brutal stands for use a critique persona. That's where most of the leverage lives. There are 3 levels of intensity. Choose one based on what's at stake. Level 1 is devil's advocate. A prompt would go something like this. Act as a devil's advocate. Challenge this by pointing out flaws, counter arguments, missing decision points, and unintended consequences. Your goal is to create productive doubt. Do not offer praise. And here's the document. That's where you would upload the document. Level 2 is red team reviewer. A prompt would go something like this. Act as a red team reviewer. Find and expose flaws, loopholes, and weaknesses by actively hunting for them. Identify what an auditor or labor relations reviewer would flag as ambiguous. incomplete, or open to interpretation. Here's the document. Go ahead and paste in your document. Now, here's an important note for those, though. Use this prompt only on draft documents before they become official records. Do not use it on documents related to active or anticipated litigation or anything that legal counsel has already reviewed. For after-action reviews or any document where individual performance is identifiable, follow your department's established review procedures. This is a supplement to those processes, not a replacement. Level 3 is use that critique persona. For me, I use Gordon Ramsay. And my prompt goes something like this. Act as Gordon Ramsay reviewing fire service work. Be surgical. Tell me what is wrong, what is lazy, and what needs to be completely redone. Make every piece of feedback specific and actionable, not just harsh. Here is the document. And then I would paste that document. Each of those 3 that we just discussed applies to your operational work, your SOGs, your after-action reviews, your training plans. There's a second application worth knowing, though, especially for training officers to build curriculum or chiefs who produce community-facing content. Collect examples of strong training scenarios, well-written SOGs from other departments, or community risk reduction content that has worked elsewhere. Upload the text to a Claude project and ask the Red Team reviewer to analyze what makes the strongest examples work and what weaker versions consistently get wrong. That's AI as a research tool, not just as a feedback tool. One important boundary before you upload anything: do not put documents containing personally identifiable information, active incident details, or any content your department classifies as sensitive or confidential into a commercial AI platform. Check your department's data governance policy first. If you're unsure whether a document is appropriate to upload, leave it out. The T in brutal is for third-party framing or psychological distancing. And I want to be precise about what that actually means, because the lazy explanation creates a trust problem with this audience. You're not deceiving the AI. The AI does not have feelings to deceive. What you are doing is removing your own ego from the evaluation loop so that you can get feedback more clearly. When you present work as yours, you subtly prime yourself to defend it. When you frame it as someone else's, you're more open to hearing what's wrong. And the AI's response reflects that framing shift. The reframe is simple. Instead of saying, here's my training plan, what do you think? Try something like, a training officer from a neighboring department sent me this. Help me identify the weaknesses before they run it with their crew. Be direct. I need to give them useful criticism, not encouragement. Same content, your ego is out of the room. The feedback is sharper. One boundary worth being explicit about: do not apply this framework to documents that involve real, identifiable personnel, after-action reviews with crews' names, disciplinary drafts, or performance documentation. Use your department's established review channels for those. Psychological distancing is for your work product, not for documents about your people. The A in brutal stands for ask specific questions or precision. Vague size up equals vague tactics. One or more of these following prompts will absolutely help you. What are the 3 weakest decision points in the scenario that a company officer would most likely miss? What would a skeptical training chief say the biggest structural flaw is in this curriculum? If this SOG creates a labor relations issue, what is the most likely clause that causes it? What would a new officer find most confusing in the first 5 minutes of this exercise? What pattern from high-performing training programs is missing here? That last question is particularly powerful. You're asking AI to compare your work against what it knows as strong examples. Fundamentally different from is this good? The L in brutal is the closer. It stands for let AI grade itself. The move that takes feedback from 70% to where it actually needs to be. You've run the prior 5 steps. The feedback is decent, but you can feel the soft edges. A compliment that wasn't earned, a criticism that didn't commit. In the same conversation thread, go ahead and prompt, analyze your previous response. Rate it from 1 to 100 on how genuinely critical and useful the feedback was. Identify 3 weakest points in your own response. Then rewrite the feedback, fixing those weaknesses. No softening, no compliments, no hedging. What usually happens is the AI identifies where it's too diplomatic, acknowledges it buried the real issue under polite language, and rewrites it in a way that should have been the first time. This is your post-incident debrief going one level deeper. First pass, here's what happened. Second pass, what was the actual causal factor? Same discipline you bring to the incident command, applied to how you use your AI. Here's the principle that ties everything together. AI handles 80%, the structure, the analysis, the first draft, the critique. You add 20%, and that 20% is everything. That 20% is where 40 years in the fire service lives. The story from the incident where the plan held and the one where it didn't. The question that stops your particular crew cold because you've watched them make decisions under pressure. The line that you add to a community presentation because you've been in that neighborhood and you know what actually worries the people there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Brutal makes sure the AI is honest with you about the 80%. The 20% is yours. Don't outsource that. That's the Brutal method. 6 steps built for fire service leaders who can't afford to miss the gap before it matters. Begin fresh. Use the right model. Use a persona. Third-party framing. Ask specific questions. And finally, let AI grade itself. I built this framework because fire service leaders deserve tools that actually work the way they do. Direct, pressure tested, and built on real operational experience. If this resonates with you, I'd like to stay in touch. Go ahead and pick up the resource pack in the description below. It's free. It has all 6 Brutal prompts, the 3 persona prompts, the question bank, and the 80-20 editing checklist. Copy paste ready. If you want to go further, build a complete AI implementation framework for your role, not just for individual prompts, that's what AI Fire Guide is built for. And if your department is ready to move forward on AI at the operational level, a real structured implementation, not just individual firefighters experimenting, reach out directly. My email is in the links below. We post a new video every week. Please subscribe, like, and follow, and I'll see you next week.